to the California State Society's inaugural virtual wine tasting. We are so pleased to have you all join us and be part of this, what we hope will be a good discussion for the next hour. We have three fantastic guests with us today. Congressman Mike Thompson, Congressman Jimmy Panetta, and Bobby Cook, CEO of the Wine Institute. And I'll introduce them more thoroughly a little bit later in our program as we get there, but I do want to go over some ground rules. This event is being recorded, just so you know. If you have a question, which we do encourage you to come up with some great questions for our special guests today, please type them out in the Q&A function so that you can keep me honest on making sure that the order of questions that come in are the order that get asked. And I am Steve Harlow. I'm a board member of the California State Society, a native Californian who grew up in Southern California in the 818 and 213. And I'll be moderating today our discussion. So again, if you have questions, please put it in the Q&A. Couple acknowledgements. All of you had the opportunity, and we hope you did take advantage of the opportunity to purchase some wines to taste throughout the course of our hour together today. And I want to thank our retail partner, Decanter, which is a fantastic wine store up on the hill in Barracks Row on 8th Street Northeast, particularly Michael Warner, the Chief Operating Officer there, who put together some great packages for you. We would encourage you to taste responsibly throughout the course of our hour together. And if for no other reason, the more responsibly you taste, the more interesting I may seem. But we will stop throughout the course of the hour to taste the 4 wines that Decanter provided for us today. So we will do that periodically throughout our discussion. So those are the rules. I want to turn it over to our first special guest, Congressman Thompson, 11 terms representing what I think is probably the most beautiful district in the country. I'm sure I just raised Congressman Panetta's blood pressure a little bit, and he will hit me back on that soon. But I will speak very highly of the California 20th soon. But California 5 has much of Napa and Sonoma wine country. And Mike is a fantastic member serving on the Ways and Means Committee, dealing with tax and trade issues, which is very important to the wine industry. But he's also uniquely a grape grower himself. So though I do not think any of your grapes are in the wines we're tasting today, Mike, we do appreciate the unique background you bring to Congress for this important industry for our state. So if I can, Congressman Thompson, I'll like to yield to the gentleman from Healdsburg for as much time as he may consume.
Well, Steve, thank you very much. And it's good to be with you. Thank you for putting this together and for what you're doing with the society. And thanks to all the society members for being on. I can honestly tell you, I'm on a panel with 2 of my favorite people. Jimmy Panetta, just a great member from Southern California, but nonetheless a great member, and a colleague on the Ways and Means Committee. We do a lot of work together, and I just hold him in very high esteem. And Bobby, thank you for being on, Mr. President. You've done a great job for the Wine Institute for a long time, and you're a wonderful ally. We've been able to conspire on a number of things where I think have turned into a very positive outcome for not only my constituents, but for the state of California and the country, because wine is important, not only to my district and our state, but to the country. A big tax base creates a lot of jobs, puts a lot of people to work, and everybody's part of the wine community. People that grow grapes, people that make wine, people that serve it in their restaurants, and people who enjoy it at home. Wine consumers are a big part of that. So Steve, you mentioned that it's a little different now than when you first started putting this together or thinking about it, and you're absolutely correct. Not only are we hit hard with COVID-19, which has really changed the way the wine community functions. I met with a group of growers and vintners yesterday, and it's tough. Restaurants are either closed or restaurants aren't opening, aren't open at the same level. So wine consumption from that big chunk of the market is hurt. I was at a meeting today with a former employee of mine, someone who Bobby knows well, who is in the business of supplying wine to other entities, and his two biggest customers are cruise ships and airlines. And you can imagine how those two industries are suffering and how it has subsequently hurt his district. And now this year, not only COVID, but things have been exacerbated by the fires that we've been hit with, not only in California, in Jimmy's district, in my district, but throughout our state, Oregon and Washington as well. And that too has taken a toll. So I appreciate you putting this together and people participating, because any support and all the support that you can provide for this wonderful industry is most appreciated and very, very important. So I'm looking forward to hearing the program, and thanks for including me.
Thank you, Congressman. I think it's time before we introduce Bobby to try our first wine, and that's going to be the Bonnie Doon Beeswax Vineyard Peekpoll Arroyo Seco 2019. This is actually the Arroyo Seco area is in Congressman Panetta's district, and this is a wine that probably retails for around $18 to $20 a bottle. Peekpoll is a grape from the Languedoc region of France, not necessarily found too often in California, but very unique. And we invite you to try. And I know Bobby's got some of the wines, and he'll probably share a little view of what he's had. But you're going to kind of pick up a very floral pineapple note to it. Very good with fish, and relatively affordable and available at decanter. Very good. Very good. So Bobby, I'm going to introduce you, and maybe you can start off telling us about what you thought about the wine, and then talking to us about how the industry is going. But if Mike Thompson and Jimmy Panetta have the most beautiful districts in the country, Bobby Cook has probably one of the best jobs in the country. As president and CEO of the Wine Institute, Bobby gets to run an organization that is an advocate for our industry. And though the Wine Institute's mission and membership is focused on the California wine industry, I can tell you as a former staffer, there is no other organization in the country doing a better job being an advocate for the U.S. wine industry as a whole. And that's because of Bobby's leadership and the rest of the great team over at the Wine Institute. So we are very, very happy and pleased and thankful that Bobby Cook took some time away from his 1,000 members. These 4 wines that we're drinking today, or that were available today, are all Wine Institute members. So we're not going to speak ill of any of these, because we don't want to speak ill of Bobby's membership. But Bobby, thank you for being with us, and the floor is yours, sir.
Oh, thank you, Steve. And it's an honor to be on this panel with Congressman Thompson and Congressman Panetta. So Steve, thank you for including me. The Wine Institute, it's a public policy advocacy organization. As Steve mentioned, we represent over 1,000 wineries, predominantly family owned. My membership represents 80% of our nation's wine production and 95% of our nation's wine exports. And to Steve's point, I really like my job, and it is a good job. I worked on Capitol Hill for 10 years. I worked for Congressman Tony Coelho, and then I also worked for Congressman Dick Gephardt. Tony was the House Majority Whip, and Dick was House Majority Leader. And I had 2 great jobs before I entered the wine world. And I joined in 1992, and I ran the Washington office for 11 years, and I've been president and CEO for 17. As Mike mentioned, this has been far and away a very tough year for each and every American. And as it relates to my world and the wine world, this is far and away the most difficult year the California wine community has ever experienced as well. We're looking forward to it being over. It's interesting, it was 7 months ago, it was Sunday, March 15th, when Governor Newsom made an announcement where he called for all bars and pubs and wineries to close. And that afternoon, I was on the phone with the governor's office, along with my talented colleagues who are also on this Zoom call, expressing our concerns about closing wineries. And we worked with them to, and we worked out the way in which we were going to interpret and implement the governor's closure announcement. Wineries are essential businesses, and we supply goods to grocery stores and food outlets. So our interpretation was that tasting rooms would close, curbside pickup would be allowed, and the day-to-day operations of a winery and the vineyards would also continue. And for the next few months, we had to work county by county to get the county folks to agree that that was a safe way in which to operate. One of the interesting things that happened early on is that there were headlines and articles, not just in the wine pubs publications, but mainstream papers that reported that wine sales were through the roof, up 70% as compared to the same period of a year ago. And as we all know, yes, sales are up on-premise, grocery stores primarily, with a handful of wineries benefiting. But on-premise sales, restaurant sales, decimated, and they still are decimated. Our tasting rooms were closed until late June. And the 10,000 wineries across the country have really taken a big hit. So we asked a very talented economist, John Moore Marco, who came from the wine world, and he's the owner of Gomberg Frederickson now, to put together some projections for us in terms of what COVID means for the wine community in 2020. And the figure is we're going to have $6 billion in lost sales for this year. On-premise restaurant sales for 2020 will be down $2.5 billion. Direct-to-consumer sales are going to be down about $300 million. Tasting room sales are going to be down $3 billion. Off-premise, though, those grocery store sales are going to be up about $1.3 billion. And it's really important also, I think, to point out, it's kind of a fun fact that 97% of US wineries produce less than 50,000 cases of wine. There are 250 wineries in the country that make anywhere between 50,000 cases and 500,000 cases. And there are only 56 wineries, large wineries, and they produce over 500,000 cases. So it's the small wineries which are really taking the brunt of COVID. And anywhere from 36% to 66% of percentage sales reductions as compared to 2019. And so I'm sure there's some people on the phone who run trade associations, and you do strategic planning and you have goals and objectives and you try to stick to it. And when COVID hit, everything broke loose. So we really we didn't really reinvent ourselves, but we really worked hard to figure out how best we could help our members during these times that are unprecedented and unpredicted. And over the course of the first few months, we did a number of webinars to help our members, webinars on the Paycheck Protection Program and SBA support. And Mike, you participated and helped us on that. health and safety preparedness for production facilities in terms of reopening, how best to deal with insurance, tasting room reopening guidelines, harvest protocols, as well as how to sell wine when you can't be on the road. So great creative ways with virtual wine tasting experiences, similar to what we're doing today. And as everyone knows, we're all about hospitalities. We're just like restaurants. We're just like hotels. I don't want to overplay my hand, but this has been devastating for small and medium-sized wineries. We normally have 24 million people come and visit our wineries every year. We produce $57.6 billion in economic activity every year. We employ 325,000 Californians. So we're hopeful when there is another package that moves forward, there'll be help for the hospitality sector and that wine will be included in that. And then on top of that, you have the wildfires. 4 million acres have burned. Fires in wine country, Monterey, Mendocino Lake, Santa Clara, Santa Cruz, Paso Robles, Sonoma, Glass Fire, Napa. It's a double whammy. And needless to say, we're saddened by the loss of life, all the homes that have been lost. Some wineries have burned down, but Napa and all the wine regions, they will release excellent wines, a 2020 vintage. It's not going to be as large as we expected, but as you can imagine, all of our wineries are committed to releasing wines that are of high quality. Nothing is going to go in the marketplace that is problematic on the smoke front. This is something we're still trying to figure out. We haven't done enough research as it relates to smoke exposure and smoke taint. All the labs in California and throughout the country are really backed up on this, and it's something that is just going to take some time to play out. In terms of what we're focused on between now and the next few months, there is a bill that Congressman Thompson and Congressman Panetta know very, very well, the Craft Beverage Modernization and Tax Reform Act. That was adopted about 3 years ago. It was a 2-year bill. It was re-upped for an additional year. And it's a bill that helps every single winery and every single distillery and every single brewery in the country. And that is a priority for us to get that re-up, the craft beverage bill, hopefully to make it permanent. There are a number of other areas that we're focusing on, but again, it's been a tough, challenging time for our great wine community. It's disheartening when you pick up the paper and you read that the California wine industry has burned to the ground. That's not the case. Napa Valley is responsible for 4% of the state's wine grape production. Wonderful, amazing wine, but it's 4%. So we're going to pull through this. Great spirit within my membership. They're in for the long haul. They're not leaving. These are families, as mentioned earlier, primarily small and medium-sized companies, multi-generational, and that's why I'm still here helping this wonderful industry. 28 years in. When I left the Hill, I thought I would do it for a year or two, and when I left the Hill, I also had a full head of hair, and here I am, your bald wine lobbyist, and it's an honor and pleasure to be a part of this today. So again, thank you.
Thank you, Bobby. That was a great rundown. 2 quick programming notes. Again, if you do want to ask a question, please use the question and answer function that's located at the bottom of the Zoom window. And so just folks are aware, Congressman Thompson has to leave shortly before 4:30 for a speech he's giving. And so we are going to hold off introducing Congressman Panetta and having him speak until Congressman Thompson leaves. so that we can get a couple questions in for our three guests before Congressman Thompson leaves. And I am going to start that off. But first, we want to try our second wine, the Arena Rosé by Blackbird Vineyards, which is from the San Francisco Bay Area. It's a 2019 rosé made from the Vin Gris grape. That, you know, this is not the white Zinfandel that, you know, Sutter Home 1980s that introduced folks to pink wine. This is actually a really robust, tasty, food-friendly wine that kind of shows up like some white peach and some orange zest and acacia flower. That's also affordable. It's about 12 bucks. Usually you can find it. It's about 12 bucks at decanter right now. And it is from the San Francisco Bay Area, ABA, which is south of Mike's district, east of Jimmy's district, like in the Livermore area, if any of you are Northern Californians. And it's just a wonderful, wonderful wine. So please taste that, enjoy it. And I'm going to kick us off with our questions for our members of Congress. You know, it really does feel like over the last few years, Mike, in particular, your district has been the epicenter of a lot of really devastating, terrible fires. And now, you know, Jimmy, Santa Cruz Mountains were hit pretty hard and continue to be hit hard. And I'm just kind of wondering, maybe you can speak to, you know, just what Bobby spoke to the resilience, but maybe you could also, you know, speak to what has happened, what are your constituents, be it wineries or others, have faced, and what's being done to rebuild.
Well, you're right. You know, we've been hit pretty hard. I have friends who've lost everything. I have friends who, in this fire, have lost their homes. Friends who have lost their wineries. People who haven't lost anything but have been evacuated time after time after time. People have lost jobs. Bobby talked about the smoke taint issue. I have a good friend of mine. He and his brother are family farmers. They're going to leave $6 million worth of Pinot Noir grapes on the vine. Guy that buys one of the wineries that buys my Sauvignon Blanc grapes, they're not going to produce a Cabernet this year. And in the past, we've suffered through the same sort of problems, but it came at a different time of the year. So the 17 fires, we made a really good wine in 17, but the fires came after most of the fruit was picked. I think in Napa, there was 5% of the fruit left on the vine. And most of the people that I know didn't even pick that. They didn't want to send their workers out into the field to deal with it, and which speaks highly to the industry. They're compassionate. They understand the value. My constituents know that you can't make good wine if you don't take care of your employees. It's employees are a big, big part of it. So they just didn't even pick their grapes. So it's a little different story this year because the fire came so much earlier. I think it begs the question. I think Bobby and I and our friends in the grower community need to sit down and figure out how we're going to do more to deal with the ramifications of smoke, and are there standards to set? How do we go about doing it? But I met with some folks yesterday who told me they weren't going to produce a red wine this year. And I remember back when my grandmother worked for John Daniels, who then owned Inglenook Winery, and she was so proud. She said, you know, some years Mr. Daniels just doesn't make certain varieties of wine because the quality is not there. So that's been the hallmark of Napa Valley and District 5 wine producers for a long time. And I don't think you're going to see that change now. And I think Bobby's right. There's going to be a real effort to make sure that if you buy a bottle of wine off the shelf, it's going to be a good bottle of wine.
Well, Congressman Thompson, I know this is probably a good time for you to sign off, so you make your 4:30 speech on time. So we want to thank you.
All right, Steve. Thank you. And it's the perfect time because unlike the rest of you, I didn't get any wine to try. So maybe this next group I'm going to Zoom with is going to be a little more
Well,
general.
God willing, we make this an annual event. And the second annual one next year, we will be in person all together in Washington.
I'm ready for that.
And
I'm
doing
ready for that. Thank you guys very, very much. Enjoy.
So thank you. So Congressman Panetta, if I can just take a quick moment and introduce you. Yes, I made the comment about California 5 being one of the most beautiful districts in the country, but there's a good argument to be made that California 20th is as, if not more, because you have a whole lot of coast, and you just have a lot of rugged roads, from Monterey to Big Sur and, down to San Luis Obispo, and a lot of ag, a lot of wine, beautiful district. You are also on Ways and Means dealing with some, major issues related to the wine industry. You have a great constituency, and we are very fortunate to have you be with us today. So again, I'll yield as much time as he may consume to the gentleman from Monterey.
Great, thanks, Steve. I appreciate that. And I do agree with you. I have one hell of an argument to make about who has the most beautiful district, not just in California, but in the nation, hands down. We have a lot of beauty, as you know, but we also have a hell of a lot of bounty. So we had a good combination, very diverse in a lot of ways. Makes it a little bit difficult sometimes in trying to appease people, but it makes it all that much more special when it comes to our diversity, be it with our geography, be it with our politics, be it with our people. So very proud to represent the Central Coast of California, CA20. So thanks, Steve. I appreciate that. And then obviously appreciate my partner, Mike Thompson, in crime. He's obviously a great chairman of the subcommittee on tax at the Ways and Means, and he's good to have not just a partner on Ways and Means, good to have a friend in California, as many of you know. So it was a real honor to share the stage with him at this event. And then of course, Bobby, thank you very much for your discussion. You said a lot of important, a lot of real things, and I really appreciated what you had to say. Especially, you didn't just have two great jobs; you had two great bosses here in Washington D.C. with Gephardt and Coelho. Oh God, Coelho and my dad were very tight. And Gephardt was in the class of '76, as you know, and all those guys were the same. I mean, it was an ilk that I grew up with. I was fortunate that obviously inspired me in more ways than one. But lucky for you to actually be on the ground and seeing a lot of things get done in a manner that we yearned to be like coming up here, to be honest with you. So appreciate that. And look, you may have had hair when you got this job. I had hair when I came to Congress just 3 years ago. So we're in the same boat. And I actually thought Mike Thompson was going to say it's good to be on this with Bobby and Jimmy, because it makes him seem like he actually has hair being with us. But I think because we know the truth about Mike. But no, it's Steve. It's good to be here, and I know you guys got wine. I got stuck with this horrible piece of beef jerky that I'm eating, and that's why I keep on drinking Gatorade at the same time. So hopefully next time the mailman comes to my house with a couple bottles as well. And even though Arroyo Seco is just down the road, obviously it takes more than just being close to it to get a good bottle of wine.
That is a perfect transition, Congressman, to make you even more jealous. And I'm gonna, before we get to our questions in the Q&A, I want to put Bobby on the spot and ask what he thought about our first two wines before we try our third.
I love the Bonnie Doon. I think it's terrific. And that's Randall Graham. And he is one of our legends. And he was one of the first to start using screw tops in a big way. But it's a delicious bottle of wine. And did you reference the price? I caught the price of the second.
Yeah, the Bonnie Doon averages around $18.
Yeah.
Yeah. So solid food wine, and the arena is around, it's around 12. So also a good affordable wine that I think is punching above its weight.
But what the group may not know is, frankly, Steve, you're the wine aficionado. What are your thoughts on these two?
So I like the Bonnie Doon a lot. I actually think it has like this acidic complexity that's going to go really, really well with fish in particular. I do like the Arena as well. It's got a great kind of strawberry guava taste to it that just works well on a warm day, even though our warm days are leaving us soon. We still have a couple more weekends, I think, where a wine like this can be enjoyed, you know, out on the grill as kind of a, you know, your pre-barbecue salad wine. But what I appreciate about wine is both when they punch above their weight and they work well with food, and I think both of these do that. So
the Arena, the vines are 135 years old.
Yep.
That's remarkable. Yep.
So before we get to our first question that isn't asked by me, we do want to try our third wine, which is the Jameson Ranch Vineyards Whiplash Zinfandel from Lodi. Zin is this is a unique California grape. California, we are known for our Zinfandel. Again, great food wines, barbecue wines. This one is just kind of brilliant ruby red in color. A lot of dark cherry, plum, blueberry, a lot of spice. This is going to retail for around $14. It's jammy, it's fantastic, and I hope you all got it and enjoyed it. And with that, we're going to go to our first question that's actually coming from this, the California State Society's co-president, Alexis Marks. And Bobby, this one's for you. You mentioned that you've done some safety and health briefings for your vintners. And I'm curious, and Alexis is curious as to what type of safety measures the vintners are utilizing, and have they been effective so far?
The answer is yes. We brought in law firms and infectious disease specialists, and we had hundreds on the webinar call. Basically, safety protocols in terms of how to reopen the tasting room safely. Tasting rooms are unique. I mean, they're not like necessarily a bar or a restaurant, and we had to take, you know, those types of differences into account. We've had very few instances of there being problems within the tasting room community, to the best of our knowledge. And, you know, just as I mentioned earlier, we always want to try to do things right and make it right. And so when the governors announced the tasting rooms could reopen, we were actually interested in having some flex in that to delay the opening, to make sure that all of our wineries were going to be able to meet these safety thresholds that we have set up. We're anxious to be able to move inside now. One of the great developments was that we were able to take tastings outside, which is very, very helpful on the COVID front. We believe also, though, there are ways in which to enjoy indoor tastings safely by limiting those, the number that can be there. But to date, it's worked out well. And, you know, on a natural, we always want to do the right thing. And to date, it's worked well.
Yeah, I mean, you should see, you know, out here in Carmel Valley, well, when I grew up here, there wasn't one tasting room. All we had was a local saloon called the Stirrup Cup. If any of you've been here, you know what that was like. And there wasn't much wine drank there. It was more of the hard stuff. But now we got about 25 tasting rooms out here in Carmel Valley. And let me tell you, they're hopping. They have taken a lot of steps, Bobby, obviously to put in place to make people feel comfortable and secure and safe. But you drive through there, I guarantee you today, it's about, as you know, it may be I don't know what the weather, it's a nice fall day back in Washington, D.C., but out here in California, we're looking at about 90, 95 degrees out here in Carmel Valley especially. So I guarantee you the wine rooms are hopping and people are out there and enjoying themselves. And you see a lot of masks, you see a lot of people socially distanced. And so they're abiding by it as well. So I appreciate what Bobby's saying, because I think we're seeing that here in Carmel Valley with tasting rooms that are up and running, but more importantly, the people that are visiting them and being responsible as well.
Yeah, and Congress, one of the important things we decided to do early on is to make all of the work that we were doing on behalf of our members available to all wineries. Not every California winery is a member of Wine Institute, unfortunately. We'll get there at some point, but we thought it was crucial to share all that we're doing. And the other really positive development is that we've also been working very, very closely with the state of Washington and the state of Oregon and other wine growing states as well. And they can learn from us and we can learn from them. And so this collaborative effort among the entire American wine community is also, you know, a nice development during a pandemic. You look for bright spots, and that's one where you have the various wine growing states working even more closely together.
Good. That's good. Good, Stephen. I'm gonna use my prerogative in this position to ask Bobby a question as well. But I want you to elaborate on something, Bobby, that I don't think, in looking at the list of members, I'm not sure if people understand how important this is. But when you talked about not the tasting rooms, but the laboratories in regards to smoke taint, tell us why that's so important. Now, obviously, as we deal with the Wildfire Hurricane Indemnity Program, the WIP program, and trying to get that started again. But remind people why it's so important to have more laboratories when it comes to something as simple, well, you think would be as simple.
Sure. Well, clearly we were not prepared for this. Just as Australia with their fires were not prepared for this either. There is no doubt that we need to do a great deal more research. We can do tests on grapes. We can get data. We can get numbers. But frankly, they may not necessarily mean a whole lot, because getting a certain number for a certain varietal will be different than a number with a different varietal. So there's still so much to learn here. One of the things we're trying to do is micro-fermentations to get a sense as to whether or not the grapes are going to be able to make good wine. But even that is not the perfect way to do this, because it's going to take time for the grapes to develop that smoke exposure, or what the profile of the taste is going to be with a grape that is exposed by smoke. We've worked with Canada, we've worked with labs in the EU and elsewhere who are willing to help us as well, which is also a nice dynamic where, again, something bad has happened to the California wine community, and those overseas are willing to step up and help us as well. But we don't have enough labs to do this work. We need to standardize the tests. And this is going to take years to figure out. But there is a very important role, Congressman, as you know, for the Congress to help on this, and I'm thankful, whether it be WIP or other ways on the research front, the Congress can step up and help our great industry.
Great. So this next question is actually specific. It was written specific to Bobby, but I think it's actually very appropriate for both of you. I'm going to read it. It's from our co-president, David Ramey. Bobby, thanks for your leadership within this critical California industry. How have your members tapped into the PPP, unemployment insurance, and other COVID-related relief programs? Which are most critical to continue to support, in addition to industry-specific items you are looking for in the next COVID relief package? And Congressman Panetta, would love your thoughts as well in terms of how your constituents are using the COVID package. We got a lot of folks on this call right now who have a lot of interest in this to see if it has worked, what has, what hasn't. So we just love your thoughts on how this is helping, or maybe not. Maybe it's not helping. I don't know.
Michael, please go first.
Yeah, look, I mean, well, like you said, I mean, people, in regards to the CARES Act, there was a hell of a lot in there. I mean, what would you expect with something that was worth 2.2 trillion, record-setting relief package? And yes, I mean, I know my numbers on the Central Coast, and there's about 1.4 billion brought into this district through the CARES Act. Most of that through the PPP, $1 billion of that through the PPP. So you had a lot of businesses, getting over a lot of hurdles in order to get that PPP and to retain a lot of employees. In my district, it was about 6,700 in loans that were taken out by individual businesses, retaining close to 30,000 jobs because of it. But then we also had the CFAP, the Coronavirus Food Assistance Program, and how the wine industry played into that. Because at first, wine grapes weren't included under CFAP. And CFAP is a program for agriculture, basically subsidies. And to be honest with you, a lot of our wine growers, a lot of my specialty crop growers down here on the Central Coast, we don't usually take subsidies, to be honest with you. Fortunately, we don't need to. And I think there was a reason why wine grapes weren't included, just like a lot of my specialty crops weren't included. And so what we had to do is work with a lot of the companies, a lot of the producers, from wine grapes to all the specialty crops, and let them know, well, you now have to start keeping these records. You have to provide that data. So it was sort of on both parts. USDA didn't have the information, neither did our guys. So we had to make sure that USDA got that information. So once we got them spun up, got them the information, wine grapes then got included in the CFAP, which was important for a lot of our producers down here, as well as other specialty crops down here. So as you know, it wasn't just a dump of money and that's it. There were a lot of hurdles with the PPP program, with CFAP that we had to get over, and hopefully we'll learn. Hopefully we did learn, and when we do pass a next relief package, hopefully we're able to make sure that those hurdles aren't there anymore.
So our tasting rooms were closed for about 3 months. And right when PPP was announced, Charles, Michelle, and I heard from a lot of our members, and we were helping them as it relates to where to go and how to do this. And we had a webinar on this very topic. What was interesting is I'm aware that a number of our wineries got PPP loans. But also I'm aware of a number of wineries which chose to return the money, that they decided that they were able to power through without this assistance. Having said that, I think there is a very strong interest by all of our members that if there's additional assistance coming for the hospitality industry, whether it be for hotels and restaurants, that wineries should be included. So it was kind of mixed. We had a number of wineries that did step up and use the PPP loans, and others chose to power on.
So then can I pick that up from there, Bobby, and ask Jimmy a controversial question in terms of, handicapping a future COVID package? Obviously probably not before Election Day. I mean, I think we can all accept that, but is this a lame duck? Is this a we got to wait and see how the outcome is and, table to January? Like, what do you see? What do you see happening here?
I think you're right in that there may not be one before the Election Day. And then beyond that, I think it will depend on how much the administration wants to use a package as a political tool, whether or not that's relevant anymore in motivating for the administration. And then if not, then it may push it off till after January 20th, unfortunately. And that's been the problem and the issues with putting this off, is whether or not our businesses, our constituents, our people, not just in our communities and our districts, but across this country, can wait till February, wait that long. And I think that's where you hear our leadership definitely getting the pressure, now, despite the fact that we passed a bill 5 months ago called the HEROES Act, and the Senate and this administration decided to take a pause. But it's also why you had 25 Democrats, 25 Republicans come together as part of the problem solvers, which I'm a part of, and actually pass a 1.5 trillion package that used what I thought was pretty ingenious boosters, in the sense of basically putting forward an initial package, that money gets out there, but then looking down the road, using certain metrics to determine how much more is needed. So you take the politics out of it and you look at the vaccine progress, you look at the hospitalization rate, you look at the infection rate. And then if there's more of that, then more money comes down the pike up to a certain amount. So I do believe it's that type of thinking outside the box that you need to continue bringing to the negotiations. And hopefully both sides understand that going forward. And hopefully we pass something sooner or agree to something sooner rather than later.
So I just noticed in the attendees, it looks like, is that Congressman Costa who's raised his hand?
Yes,
Congressman Costa, thank you for joining us.
you're welcome.
The floor is yours, sir.
Well, it's always good to be with my friend Jimmy Panetta, who's one of our rising stars. And Jimmy, I've been wanting to send you a note. Your dad did a heck of a job on the virtual event we had Tuesday night. He was the star. Had a number of people that wanted to draft him to run for president. But no, I appreciate, Bobby, that all that you and Steve do. We've worked together for many years, and I don't know how many folks are left on here. My day today is like a lot of us, seems to be one continuous Zoom. But we thank you for your support for the California Society. What Jimmy said is just right. I mean, the problem solvers of which I serve with Congressman Panetta, I thought I mean, we're always trying to bridge the gap, right? That's what the problem solvers is all about. And I think that he described it in a different way than I do. I call them triggers, but the ability to bridge the gap between the 2.2 trillion that is in our reduced heroes package and the 1 trillion that McConnell put on the floor, but then now is backed away from. He's going to do 500. I'm not quite sure I understand the logic of that. Frankly, with some of his senators that are at risk, it seems to me that there would be some motivation there. But he's got 20 Republican senators, as we know, that will not vote for anything. And but the triggers could allow you to, if the economy's good and like the president says, it's going to be V-shaped recovery. Hell, then we'd spend less. And if our fear that, next January, we're still in the midst of all of this, would be closer to the 2.2 trillion number. But we're going to stay with it. And, it doesn't help that the president's been all over the board. I saw what he said today, it should go higher than 1.8. And at the same time, McConnell said today, hell, we're going lower than 1 trillion. So, I mean, it's just, the whole time we need more payroll protection program. We need more on health testing. We need more for state and local government. The country's hurting. And it's good to see you, Steve and Bobby. Is there anybody else but the four of us left?
We had Congressman Thompson on earlier, Jim, but he had to roll off for a speech at 4:30. So we really appreciate you joining us.
Well, I wanted to wait until Thompson got off because
that seemed to be the recurring theme. I want to take a pause if we can, and thank you, Jim, for getting on and making those comments. I want to take a pause and try our fourth and final line, because if for no other reason, we got to make sure we try it. But the next question coming is controversial, so I want to make sure we're a little warm before I ask it of our guests. The fourth wine is the fabulous Cabernet Sauvignon, 2018 from Paso Robles. The Paso Robles wine region is halfway in between San Francisco and Los Angeles. It was a sleepy region when Napa was on the rise, but it is sleepy no more. It's one of the last bastions of semi-affordable land you can actually buy and start growing grapes on. And by semi-affordable, I do not mean that it's really affordable. For a lot of folks in the wine industry, to make a small fortune, you have to start with a large fortune, and that's becoming true with Paso Robles as well. But this is a Cabernet Sauvignon that is made by some folks whose entire goal is to create a wine that, again, punches above its weight. And so you'll see this, retailing for about $20 to $24. But in my estimation, having had it a couple times, this can do really, really well blind tasted with, anything that's selling for 40 or 50 bucks. And so it's big, it's vibrant, got a lot of black currant, cedar, vanilla. And it's one of those wines that can go well on its own or is also a good food accompaniment. So please enjoy. And then I will ask our guests this very, very controversial question coming from our co-president, Alexis Marks. So be ready, gentlemen. Alexis has always been curious about the twist-off cap versus the cork. So is there a benefit or reason why they use one and not the other? I'm just going to add, what are your personal opinions and proclivities about this very controversial debate that has been ongoing for over 2 decades now? Bobby, I'm going to start with you.
You want to start with me?
Yeah.
I happen to love screw tops. I think they're great.
Me too.
You eliminate cork tape. You're not going to get a bad corked wine. And the wine can also age. It's a real trick, though, for the wine steward and sommelier in the restaurant to kind of bring it over and make the presentation, and then he or she tries to do the screw.
Not a whole lot of theater.
It's a little, yeah, I've never seen anyone really pull it off. Having said that, I am a big fan, and I think we'll continue to see it, more and more. New Zealand started it, with the Sauvignon Blanc by and large. Randall Graham, whose wine we enjoyed earlier, the Bonnie Doon, he was out front early as well on the screw top. So yes, 2 thumbs up for screw top.
Congressman Panetta?
Well, I can't. I got a follow-up question though on that. In that, so people have. And I only know this because of Ted Balistreri and the bottle of wine that he bet my father over the Osama bin Laden raid. That's a whole nother story. It'll take up another. That's a whole nother story that we can get into. But obviously, with the 1870-something Lafitte Rothschild, Ted said that he had it sent over to get recorked. My question to you, Bobby, is: could you take a bottle of wine like that, and that's traditionally been corked, and then put a screw cap on it?
Oh, I don't know. That's a great question. You can certainly recork it.
Yeah.
I don't know if you could do that. Here's my whiplash cork. It broke on me.
Well, there you go.
So,
There you
and I had to
go.
redo it.
And
Yeah.
Of our 4 wines, the Bonnie Doon and the Arena, so our white and rosé, they were both screw tops. They were both screw tops.
And I sure hope that the representative from the cork manufacturers is not on our call today.
Let's hope.
Yeah.
What does Jim think?
Congressman,
Well,
screw top or cork?
I'm a traditionalist. I like the cork. Having said that, I'm told by the experts like Bobby and others that it's a better seal with the screw top, and for preventing air from getting into the wine. It's and obviously it's easier. It doesn't have the romance that opening a bottle of wine with a cork does. Although I've had some bottles here recently that have not aged well, and I've had to get the Oso to get down there to get it out, although the wine was still drinkable. But I must say, in concluding, that I think this is a discriminatory action on behalf of some in the wine industry against Portugal. I mean, one of the things we do is produce a lot and export cork, right? And I don't know why it is that they're conspiring against a small country that makes pretty good wines, I think. And they've actually got some great wines here in the last 20 years out of the different regions. But, I mean, so I'm with cork. There you have it.
Well, from what I understand, Jimmy Panetta's first bill in the 117th Congress will be tariffs on cork producers in Portugal. We'll go through Ways and Means. Starting a little inter-California member rivalry here.
And he's a great advocate, and I'm a good supporter of the Central Coast wine industry because they do some incredible wines there, from Jimmy's district all the way down to Santa Barbara. It's really terrific wine growing region. And Steve, you were good to tout it. I'm going to have to go here. I just want to make sure that any bad stuff Mike Thompson said about me, I corrected. And Bobby,
I got your back, Jimmy. You're good.
I know. And, thank the Wine Institute always for the support, and Steve and all of you for allowing Jimmy and I to ensure that we do our part for the California Society, which reflects, I think, some of the real strong advocates from California have gone back to Washington, and gives us an opportunity to be together and to work on a host of issues in which we have good bipartisan support and a forum for lots of things. I know, I don't know where I didn't get the wine listing because I'm not tasting any of this wine, Steve.
Well,
So I'm not happy about that. I would like to get this.
Yeah, as we've said, Congressman Costa, this is our inaugural event. God willing, our second annual next year, we will be able to all do this in person and come together and see each other's faces and have conversations before and after formal programming and taste great wine from Bobby's members, from, you know, ideally from Jimmy's district and wines coming out of your district as well, Jim Costa. But we are at the top of the hour, so I do want to thank all of you for participating. I do hope you were able to take advantage of the offers that Decanter made, and you'll be able to enjoy your wines with your dinner tonight. I want to thank our guests, Mike Thompson, Jimmy Panetta, Jim Costa, and Bobby Cook for just having a great conversation with us. I want to thank the folks for all of your attendance. And Bobby, I do also want to thank you and the Wine Institute and your team for being platinum members of the California State Society. We cannot do this without great sponsors like you. And again, you know, we have done our best to provide, you know, good programming for all of our membership in the wake of these unique times we're in. And we do hope we will continue to do that. And we have a great event coming up with Alex Padilla, our Secretary of State, on the 21st, which I hope all of you will attend. And we will continue to be knocking out as much great programming for you as possible in hopes that someday soon we will reach some semblance of normalcy and see each other in person. So with that, thank you, everybody. Thank you to our guests.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
And we'll see you next time.
Keep up the good work.
Great fun. Thank you so much.
Take care.